Hello, I'm going to talk about chord types, and particularly the most common chord types you'll come across in jazz standards and standard jazz practice. And this goes along with my sheet of chord types, which I will be reading from copiously as we go along. So make sure you've got that to hand, use that as a reference. Everything I say obviously applies to all 12 keys. And that's the first thing I want to clear up, which is that this can seem like an awful lot of stuff to do because we've got all of these different types of chords and each of them can start on any particular note. Yes, it is quite a lot, and I would like to reassure you that if you spend a little bit of time getting under the skin of these, they get easier and easier to absorb and understand. Anyway, there is light at the end of the tunnel. That's what I'm here to say. It's not an endless task, even though some of it is a bit grunt work. Okay, right, let's get stuck into it. So I've tried to start with the chords that have smallest intervals together and then work towards the larger ones, rather than going for the most common chords first, working down to the rarest ones generally. So that's, if that helps explain my system. Okay, so we're going to start with diminished chord, diminished triad, which is a stack of 2 minor thirds. Now, if you need a reminder on intervals, a minor third is 3 semitones, so it covers 4 actual notes. So C up to E flat would be a minor third. In other words, it's the third that you would find at the start of a minor scale. Okay? And conversely, a major third is the one you'd find at the start of a major scale, and that one contains 4 semitones. Notice that even though I'm saying it contains 4, there's 5 notes in there, because there's 5 notes and 4 spaces between the notes. Yeah, this will make sense. Make sure you're doing these with a keyboard, or at least with your instrument, so you can put these ideas into practice. Right, back to the point, Derek. Diminished triad is 2 minor thirds on top of each other. So I'm going to do everything starting with C. So in this case it's C, E flat, G flat. Notice not F sharp, because a third contains 3 letters, C, D, E, E, F, G. So it's always going to be a type of G, even though that looks like an F sharp on my piano. All right. So the 2 common ways of writing this, the modern way of writing it is with a little circle. Actually, it's usually a superscript circle rather than an O, as I've put in the sheet. I might try and change that so it looks proper. In older circles, sorry, pun not intended, in older ways of writing, you're going to come across the more long-winded way of writing out. So it would have been written as a minor chord, but with a flattened fifth. So the fifth has been altered downwards by 1 semitone. And that is a general principle with all of these, that the modern way of writing tends to have less ink because there's less information to process when you're reading through a chart fast. If you look at really old charts, every chord has got loads and loads of writing, which is great because it's got all the information there. It just takes a long time to actually parse it when you're encountering it in the music. And that's why the modern way, we have a couple of kind of new symbols, but it's to help with the reading process ultimately. Great. I can add another minor third on top of that. So on top of my G flat, go up another minor third, and actually we end up with B double flat. Looks like an A on my piano. Right, so there's a diminished 7th. If I go up another minor third from the A, or B double flat, I get up to the octave. So actually, all the intervals are exactly the same, and it doesn't matter where you start. So there's a very important fact about diminished 7ths in particular. Right, going back to the diminished triad, C, E flat, G flat. If now I add a major third on top rather than a minor third, which is going to be B flat at the top, C, E flat, G flat, B flat, we get what's known as a half diminished seventh, or just a half diminished chord, because there isn't any other kind of half diminished. So I think the seventh bit is redundant there. Notice that this one tends to be written with a circle with a slash through it. This is something you'll encounter in any modern chart. And this is usually the point at which people go, oh, this looks a bit jargony, which is a fair reaction. I think if you read enough charts and come across these signs often enough, then you'll forget that they looked weird at all to start with. So there's our half diminished. Very useful chord, comes up all over the place. I'm not going to talk really too much about context in this video, that's for a later one. Okay, a minor third with a major third on top will give us a minor triad. Notice I've got 4 different spellings of this. Generally now you either see the little M or the minus. The other ones have hopefully died a death. Right, and I've got a couple of choices of sevenths to add on. So if I take that minor triad and add a minor third on top of the G, I get a B flat. So this is known as a minor seventh. So it's a minor triad with a minor seventh on top. And if I added instead a major third on top, so from G you go up to B, I've got a minor triad with a major seventh. Yeah, this is where we start to encounter the triangle. Triangle really is a shorthand for the major seventh, or the leading note if you want to think of it scale-wise. Yeah, that's all I want to say about that one really. Get used to the sound of these. That's really important. Okay, so that's all of our minor chords for the moment. We'll come back to some special cases later on. If I take a major third, C to E in this case, and put a minor third on top, then I've got a major triad. And then I can mess around with the next note. Another minor third from G to B flat gives us a dominant chord, or a dominant seventh. This is an incredibly useful chord and sound in jazz as a whole, so definitely want to get your head around the sevenths. Notice that this one is possibly the simplest one to write, C7. The 7 means a major chord with a flat seventh, but I guess it's indicative of how common it is that it's got the simplest way of writing it, I suppose, apart from the major triad, which just has the letter itself. Okay, so that was a major triad with a minor third on top. If I put a major third on top, we get the major seventh. And this one is just the plain triangle. Major seventh is a major triad with a major seventh on top. Okay, hopefully this is all making sense. If it's all garbage to you, I can strongly recommend just sitting with the piano and trying these out one at a time until things start to click. And if you're still struggling, let me know and I'll do my best to find a better angle to enable you to work out what's going on here. Okay, major third at the bottom, add another major third, so in this case going from E up to G sharp, and we get an augmented triad. And just like the diminished seventh, if I added another minor third, we got up to the octave. If I take an augmented triad and add another major third up top, I get up to the octave again. So again, all the intervals are the same as each other, which has some interesting ramifications. There's a thing I didn't think I'd be saying right at this point. Okay, plain augmented triads probably aren't very common in jazz actually, but it's a very evocative sound. I bet that makes you think of like certain moments in film soundtracks. Yeah, let me know what you think would be happening there. What does it conjure up to you? Good, and we can add, like I said, if you add a major third on top, you get the octave, so that's redundant. If you add a minor third on top of the G sharp, then you get the major seventh above the root. So this would be an augmented chord with a major seventh. I've written it as augmented major seventh. I don't believe it has a commoner name than that. It probably isn't a common name for it. Just a tiny aside, the third spelling of that I've written as E/C, which is in recognition of the fact that the top three notes make an E major triad, and then if we put the C below in the root, we get our augmented major seventh. But actually that's, to my mind, an easier way of thinking about that as a major chord on a different root. Okay. Part 2 of this video, and just because I've got something else to do right now, and I'll come back and stitch these together. Part 2 we'll talk about some other cases, inversions, extensions, some bits and bobs. So those are, for now, our main collection of chord types. So if this is new to you or it contains some new information, this is a great point at which to spend a bit of time working them out, try them in some different keys. Grab your real book and find some examples of where they appear, each of these chord types, and then work out what the notes are and see what you can do with them, basically. All right, see you later.